All right. So thank you everybody for choosing to watch or listen to SkyInclude interview series. Sometimes these are tutorials, screencast videos. Sometimes we have talks like 2 years, almost exactly 2 years ago. We had Scott from Dot Wallet come on and we launched Dot Wallet July 4th, 2022 is back. I think I changed. We're all changing, but I definitely think it was evolution of probably a big perseverance, which I appreciate, and we'll get into the show. But thanks for coming back on the show, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. It's a pleasure. And I think in the last 2 years, I probably aged 10 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, there's a saying I try to say to myself because I'm also putting a lot of pressure. We have to put ourselves out there, and if we're not like under pressure, we're not growing, right? So many people in this world just kind of live life like without challenging or putting themselves out there. And while it might age someone, it also I think helps. What I was saying is whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I don't know if you believe that quote, but I think it's true.
I will drink to that.
So we've survived, and not only survived, thrived. There's a new home and new future for Dot Wallet, but I think we'll get to that a little bit later. So first of all, yeah, it was 2022, right? July 4th, 2022. We launched Dot Wallet at Gateway Registrar.
Correct.
And of course, we'll link up these previous videos. We have a couple videos we did. I think mostly one video we did together, and we chopped in a couple pieces for some promotional parts. But do you want to? I mean, I actually haven't really spoken to you about it since maybe we had mostly chats. But from what I saw on the outside, I can go through what I saw on the outside, and I know you have much more insights, of course, unfortunately. But from what we saw on the outside is, I guess, excuse me, maybe cut that part for me, Alvin. And what I saw from the outside was there was some letter that came from the Unstoppable Domains Inc. company. I'm not sure where they're registered. I think Delaware, or California, or something. And they asked. It wasn't to you, but it was to Gateway to. Was it cease and desist? I don't know how much you can get into this to if you say you can't.
Yeah. So we do have, like, I should initially say that the case is still ongoing. So out of respect for that, there'll be some things that I may
Yeah, I
just say
figured.
to be seen or to be determined, or you can refer to the case documents because they're all out there. But yeah, I'm happy to go over.
But I mean, I think maybe it was because it got a lot of attention, right? I mean, I think a lot of people started because you gave a super low price. Like, I don't think you even had any profit yourself as the owner of the TLD, and it was like it ended up being a couple bucks total after all costs. And people were going. It was feeding onto Twitter. There was a Twitter feed, and I think a lot of people were sharing it and tweeting it and registering them, and so I think it was one of the most hot launches of a TLD and Handshake that I can recall. But I guess they also got with that attention. Maybe this did get the attention of other domain solutions, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this for Gateway really was sort of like a fledgling operation. I mean, I didn't go first by any means, but they were small and I think not relatively well known within the whole registrar slash register type business. And that was one of the things that I liked. I thought I kind of wanted to work with like a young up and coming, like give them an opportunity, give them a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember we chatted about it before that. And that I of course, man, I think I'm really happy you came on to share. But yeah, I mean, it did confuse people, right? Because a lot of people confuse Handshake with Namebase, or confuse Handshake with Gateway, or confuse Handshake with Namecheap even, or others. But Handshake is a blockchain. It's not Gateway. Gateway was a centralized traditional, what is it called? EPP registrar, believe is.
Yes. Well, we need to kind of divide this up, actually.
Yeah, please help
And
me
this
out here.
actually
Yeah,
makes
help me out
sense
here.
for legal reasons too.
Sure.
So in the case of Gateway, there's several components. You have the registrar piece of it, right? And that's Gateway that's registered in Delaware. And then you had the register component to it, which was actually all done, I think, over in Great Britain. So that piece was, I think, managed, as they say, across the pond.
Yeah.
But when it gets, I guess when the cease and desist letter comes or a lawsuit happens, it kind of becomes like just one big target, like all Gateway.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't even know that structure till now, but maybe for the like just a normal customer, which some were disappointed, but I believe they stuck around. They've been rewarded or made even. But of course, at that point when it went, so the letter came, and I think I didn't know there were two gateways, but Gateway, I think, didn't know how to handle it. And like you had said, was a small startup operation with not many funds and not really well known. And I think that's actually almost a little bit separate business case, but the power of a legal letter. Actually, a totally different, Scott. But I've used a lawyer myself in another totally separate business in India, actually, for an Indian user in another business I'm doing, and it really is effective. I mean, I paid this lawyer for our business to write a letter to some individual from his firm, and it scared the heck out of that person because they were really being aggressive and unreasonable to us about something totally different, totally different. But I think a letter from a lawyer is pretty scary, right? I mean, and I don't want to
It
say,
is it
yeah,
is a
right.
valid tactic.
It's scary. Yeah. It's a scare tactic. Even if there's no basis, you could kind of, a business person or an individual, right, can retain a lawyer, tell them, well, when I did with this Indian lawyer, he did want to understand my case first. He didn't just write anything I asked him to. He did want to understand my case. But I guess it's kind of like a doctor, right? Or any kind of professional. You could keep going until you find a professional is willing to do what you want them to do. But they writing a letter is scary, right? And you receiving a letter is scary. You take it pretty serious, most people.
Oh yeah. And it was easy for me basically as sort of the customer to just tell them to ignore it.
Yeah. So I think we should break that down too for people. Again, it's great to have you here, and I think it's a good lesson for people about the domain industry, especially in Handshake or even any other. There's the domain registrar. Even I'm kind of still learning it, but registrar is the one that's kind of like the retail
The
distributor,
front
right?
end. I
The
kind of think
front
of the
end.
registrar as the front end
Yeah.
and the register as the back end,
And the back end, which is the TLD, right? Or is
which
that
is the database of, I mean, it's a database file. It's the data set
okay, got it.
of names and
Yeah.
addresses.
Because I think that's like VeriSign with .com, right? And then GoDaddy's the registrar, a registrar of .com. Of course, everybody,
Right.
so many, I mean, it's so distributed. So there's all these people that can sell .com, but the only registrar of .com is currently VeriSign. I don't really understand fully, but I think it's easier for people to understand. So in the .wallet, registrar was across the pond in .wallet, and then a registrar, which is the distributor, the retailer, the one selling it to the end user, or there's even a word for that, registrant, I believe. So it really scared the gateway, or at least a significant amount of the gateway organization. And I think it did work well for the person sending it. Unstoppable thought I think they thought they had an easy win, right? I think they thought that was easy because it kind of folded somewhat quickly, right? I can't remember the exact timing, but I felt like it was a pretty quick shut down operations and close up shop. I
Well,
don't.
that's one of the downsides of going with an unknown or an up and coming or a still a fledgling or an immature, organization performing those functions is you, in other words, like let's just say that Namecheap or GoDaddy had launched it. They would have just said, don't worry, we got this taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the lesson I hope I want people to learn from this as other TLD owners in this ecosystem. When you choose a registrar or staking, whatever the term is, think about that, right? Like it's great to learn from this, and we're sharing this story. So then it disappeared. And then the sad part is actually for me as a Handshake director or as just a community member, and there was criticisms. I even got it directly to me on Twitter and other platforms. Is like, oh, you say Handshake's decentralized. Look, and like these guys just disappear, rug pull or disappear, or what are the domains now, et cetera, et cetera. But I just want to clarify for those watching or listening, because it's gateway, Handshake is a TLD blockchain. So the TLD.wallet is on the Handshake blockchain, but all the SLD sales were through Gateway on this EPP system, which is more of a traditional Web2 type system. And it was on a centralized database that did get kind of locked up for a while, and people couldn't even see if they owned what they owned and things like that. So it was not the best also for the Handshake ecosystem in general, because a lot of people don't really have the time or understanding to dig in as deep as we are, that there's multiple levels of this kind of decentralization of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think it's almost natural to kind of go through that as Web3 is still very young. It's still in its baby steps phases, and there's a very blurry line between a decentralized Web3 infrastructure, which Handshake is and always has been, and then you get to like the application layer, right? That's kind of what I think of Gateway or the registrar as. That's performing the application that just functions as the interface to create those SLDs, and that right there becomes Web 2.
Yeah.
So you sort of have like the Web 3 to Web 2 thing going on, and you can shut down those. You can't shut down the TLD.
Yeah.
I mean, Handshake, I still own that. It was in a wallet that I had the keys to. So
yeah, that
still existed.
I don't know. Some people, I think, still choose these other maybe Web3 domain. I'll almost put parentheses around domain or quotes around domain, but prefer these other ones. And I don't even feel like naming the other ones, but maybe they're easier to use. But with Handshake, yeah, it's a little more complicated, but you can kind of do what you want, right? .wallet is now on a different system, which we'll get into. And you chose where to stake it or to what to do with it. People could do it themselves. People could use these large corporations. They could use startups like Gateway was, and it could be Web 2 version, Web 3. It can go on to some like .stars on Cosmos, some are on Ethereum, some are on various levels of Ethereum. Like we're going to talk about HSID, which is on Optimism. And I think that's a feature, not a bug. But I think a lot of people still like the easy, and you get like no choice, and you have to use this system that whatever the creator of that system chose you have to use. So I think that's what I actually attracted. One of the attractions I liked to Handshake myself. But yeah, basically, unfortunately, we didn't expect it to collapse as it did, especially as quickly. And you've always said you'll honor, and you did honor those customers. But yeah, I mean, it was super stressful, super stressful. But yeah, you unfortunately had not much too much power yourself as the TLD owner with Gateway, right? It's not your business, and you were trying your best to work with them. But I think people hopefully understood that, or at least are understanding that now, right? I think people really don't understand. It's still so new, like you said, people don't understand all these different organizations and entities involved in a domain system.
I'm not happy with them to this day. My only concern was the customers. And they really weren't even my customers. They were Gateway's customers.
Yeah.
But I kind of felt like a sense of ownership there, even though I had no authority or capability to like refund them. I mean, all I could do, the only capability I had is to just promise those people that, hey, when we get back up and running, which we will, we're going to take care of you.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure that you have what you originally got.
Yeah. Also, to highlight the point, it affected all of Gateway's customers because they took the whole site off. And so it wasn't just .wallets, it was .cs, which are very popular in the Handshake ecosystem. And even me, I had .wallets, but I also had other domains in Gateway, which I did get later, and we'll get to that soon. but it took the whole thing down. Everybody, there were some people that were kind of whales that had lots of like what they called, and I would also agree, Grail C's and other domains that were very upset. They also had .wallets, but it was like everything, any domain somebody bought in Gateway was basically locked out or didn't see, or it was just like page not found. So it was really stressful time, and it really did hurt, unfortunately, the reputation of Handshake, I believe, at least in that time frame. So
I don't know that it hurt the Handshake as much as it did Gateway itself. Because, like I said, I mean, that's one of the downsides of going with a company like that is that, like I said, I mean, if Namecheap had done it right from the outset, there wouldn't have been a blip on the radar as far as like interruptions to people's stuff.
yeah,
They would have intercepted it. They would have said, "Don't worry, we got this taken care of." They would have taken care of it, and
yeah,
nobody probably would have even known that anything had happened.
yeah. Yep. So I think maybe we move to the next milestone. But yeah, I guess the lesson here is when you stake your TLD as a handshake or any price system, I think same as in Web 2, you have not much control. You don't even know who the end customer is. I don't think any of them show that. So you are basically delegating a lot, but you're also still getting the heat like you did if there's a problem. And I know it hit like Clay at .c and others. There were people were really upset about Gateway and coming to those various TLD owners. I think also Noel at .tx and others. So yeah, well, we did get out. There is light at the end of the tunnel, so there is a little bit of a better ending to this, but we're still earlier in this. I hope I'm not take ripping the scab off too much here, Scott.
No, it's all good. I was actually prepared to launch my own registrar.
Wow. Yeah,
Like
we have.
it was going to be a dot wallet registrar, and I had actually started programming it. I had actually built the infrastructure. I had multiple Power DNS servers running. I had
Nice.
built the interface with the Postgres backend database, and yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I had actually gone that far. I mean, before Namecheap stepped in.
Yeah, let's get to that. So I think if I recall correctly, you wrote a letter to the Handshake community. I think it went a little bit wider than you had expected. I think it was in some smaller Telegram or chat groups, but it got a little bit wider and it was basically, I don't know if you want us to even dig that up. I think I could probably find it, but it was like a one page, one or maybe 1.5 page PDF letter that you had written, basically asking for help from the community or suggestions or input about this. And you put an email at the bottom. So do you want to share a little bit about that one?
Yeah, well, basically what happened was my first reaction when the whole thing went down and the cease and desist letter came and Gateway like pulled their whole thing down and ran off with the customer's money was to basically just put out an alert to everyone, to the community, like, hey, this happened. I'm not going to be able to fix this on my own. I can try, but I anybody that wants to help, please help. And it was actually an original Handshake, I'll call him stakeholder, that reached out to me and said, hey, if you write this up, give me something written down and I will distribute it to a group of important people and we'll get you help. So I said, yeah, absolutely, done. So I wrote it down and he basically got the message out. And that was when Richard contacted me.
Okay, great. So let's recap. So this, yeah, I saw the letter and yeah, so Richard, just so people know, Richard's the CEO of Namecheap. He's pretty active on Twitter too at, I think Namecheap CEO. And so he contacted you. So that, I don't know how much of course, I know some of this is comfort, but I think he was intrigued by your letter, right? And wanted to help.
He did want to help. And I mean, I can't say enough good things about Richard. I'm not gonna, I promise I won't turn this into a Namecheap and Richard Kirkendall promotion video, but the guy, the guy is like a hero to me. I mean, his interest was really only in, he's very like pro freedom of speech, anti-censorship. He's got some core value that are good and genuine. And I agree with those core values. And that's really mostly what we talked about, is like, this is about an injustice that has happened, and we need to fight it.
Great.
So I'm forever like grateful.
Yeah, I appreciate Richard too. I haven't had a chance to really get to know him too much directly, but through what his actions is always the most important, especially especially as a community, right? We've all gotten to know each other in the Handshake community, and people can, of course, make their own evaluations about about Gateway. I know you're definitely not happy, but everybody can make their own kind of conclusions. But yeah, I mean, Richard and Namecheap has been very much a huge supporter for the Handshake ecosystem. So then I think it's somewhat public. I mean, Domain Name Wire is a great source. I don't know. Sometimes they're like following the courts directly and getting a scoop. But I think it's semi-public knowledge. But yeah, basically they stepped in to help with the legal because you couldn't have. I think the point was the gateway, I think, might be decided to fold because even though you or they were right, to defend it in court would have been quite a lot of money, and probably hundreds of thousands of USD minimum. So
Right.
that's the sad
Which
fact
I
about
don't
the legal.
have.
Yeah, that's the sad thing about the legal system in general, right? Even if somebody's right and somebody else makes a lawsuit or a demand, you have to pay to defend. So, so it was almost looking like the bad guy, and at least my interpretation, the bad guys won. The people with the money could just stomp out the little guy that, in our opinion, of course, everybody has their own interpretation, but they can just do that, which is really disgusting and sad. But that didn't happen because basically they helped sponsor with the legal support from the Namecheap system. I hope I'm okay to say that, but I think it's public. So they helped a lot with this defending the case and even making a countersuit, which is still ongoing. And I know it's actually still active. So of course, we got a little careful what we share publicly, but I think it's mostly public knowledge what's been shared so far. But I mean, it's just been years, right? I think I've been waiting to do this talk with you for a while, but it's just hard because you can't really say a lot still publicly, and the case takes years. I guess this legal stuff just takes years. I don't know if you want to give a little bit of highlights or
Yeah, I
anything.
mean, what I can do is I can basically summarize in an oral or verbal fashion what is in the documents that are filed and on file, and would take somebody hours to go through and read, or probably days at this point.
Yeah, I know. There's so much. I think that's
Yeah,
great.
so I can recap the whole thing with what's been filed. So basically, Namecheap put me in touch with some lawyers who are very experienced in doing these types of things. And I've pretty much been working with them the entire time for the past 2 years. And they've been great. They're great. I can't say enough good things about them either. I would tell anybody else that if they ever find themselves in a similar, predicament, to definitely use these lawyers.
Great.
They're that good. So one of the harder things was a lot of this is new, even to the legal community. So there was like an educational curve, I think, that had to happen, so that the lawyers got up to speed on what is a blockchain, how does a public and private key work, what is an NFT, and what are the rights of NFTs as far as legal things go, and yeah, so I think probably by now those lawyers are like really skilled in the whole.
Yeah, they're Web3 lawyers now.
They are.
That's good. Spreading the knowledge.
I mean,
Well,
initially at the heart of it, it was a trademark case, right? I mean, that was the
yeah,
initial claim, was
and
that a trademark had
and
been had been
but it
violated.
wasn't. It wasn't. It never is a trademark, right? Anyway, I don't know.
No, in fact, I don't think I've ever said this before, and I don't even know if this is in the documents, the case documents. It might be, but there was actually a USPTO ruling back in, gosh, when was it? 2017, 2014, maybe. It goes back a ways. Sometime in there, sometime in the 20 teens, somebody tried to trademark blockchain, and they filed I think a trademark request for dot blockchain, or they're just the word blockchain. And the ruling that the USPTO made was that blockchain was such a common word now, embedded within the English language, or the digital knowledge ecosystem. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but whatever word I'm looking for, that blockchain was such a common word that nobody could trademark blockchain. And what was interesting is that in that ruling, they threw in, oh, by the way, you also can't trademark wallet or Bitcoin or coin or some.
Great.
I may not have the coin or Bitcoin right, but wallet was mentioned in there. Like, it wasn't even asked about. They just threw it in. USPTO did. I said,
God.
oh, by the way, don't think of like trademarking this other word here either. So it went all the way back to then.
Yeah, it's pretty
But yeah, so that's initially, I think, what this case was, and I think we're past that after 2 years now.
Yeah. Sorry again. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're representing all of Handshake, and of course the lawyers and Richard Namecheap's support. You know, it's because this is precedent for all of us, right? Basically, I mean, we should also glance on that a bit. It's, of course, it's dot wallet, but it's also just all of these names, right? Really, I don't know if we want to go that wide, but you're this is precedent, is right the word, right? So this will be used for the future, whatever outcome
Right.
is.
And one of the things that I tried to impress to our stakeholders, which I guess I could say like Namecheap is one, but is that this is the right case to pick. This is the right name to pick to defend, because I did things like I registered a company called Wallet, like back in 2020, just in case something like this happened. I mean, I was just like thinking about the future, and I thought, I could see one day somebody coming out and saying, just like they do with ICANN, how they fight over ICANN domains. Well, I started this company and named whatever wallet.com in this time, and so therefore I should get the .com. And but this other person registered. They go through this whole system of dispute resolution, and I thought probably a good idea to just like register a company, because I don't want somebody coming out later and saying, oh, he was disingenuous, or he just tried to, like, what do they call it? What do they call it when you take a domain and you
Squatter,
squat?
maybe?
Yeah. He was just squatting this. I also started building it out like the
I
day
saw.
after I got
Yeah,
it.
I remember.
I actually
I
minted
used
some
it.
things to the I minted some SLD. I minted a couple SLDs to the blockchain, and I started like creating an interface. I think you might have seen it. Like, I
Yeah,
think
I wish I could dig it up somehow, but I
you were a
remember.
customer.
Yeah, it was in 2020. I remember it was 2020. We were doing those group calls with the various Handshake builders.
It was just a proof of concept at that time, and I took it down once the proof of concept proved successful, and that's when I started transitioning it into a production environment. But I was building it all out by myself.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Okay, I think we're good for this part. So let's go to, I think we'll transition from that was kind of the bottom or the low. Well, somewhat picking up with Richard and Namecheap stepping up to help. And it's still ongoing, still not done, but basically I think the first stage was not dot wallet, but all the other non-dot wallet, I believe all others were able to get claimed into Namecheap by a kind of manual special process. So it emailed all gateway customers listing out the domains that they had on their account in the email, saying click this claim link to go to Namecheap and to port these names over to your Namecheap account. I remember that process. I did it myself, which was I think that was earlier this year or late last year. I feel like, and that was some sign of hope, but it wasn't the wallet names. And then the wallet names have recently come out. It's been a few months now. I don't know if you want to share about that process, because I know you were anxious. You wanted to do it sooner, right? But do you want to share a little bit about this?
Yeah, well, that kind of, I mean, in a way, that speaks to the whole story going back to Gateway, which is, I wanted to build out a data infrastructure around dot wallet. And at the time when I started doing that, I only knew how to do that with a DNS application layer. There were no decentralized SLDs at the time on Handshake. There were traditional DNS registrar services, but the DSLD thing was still being worked on and worked out. And when I decided to list, I really wanted a decentralized SLD solution, but it seemed like it was a year away at the time. So that's why I decided, well, let me launch this with a traditional DNS, and then when that comes along, we can migrate it, was the thinking. And then, so the funny thing is during the whole time that the case was going on, as we thought would happen, a decentralized SLD solution was being worked on and being finished up. So the decision really around dot wallet at that point, once that part of the case had sort of been resolved, was, well, do we want to launch dot wallet back on a traditional DNS registrar, or do we want to do something kind of new and cool, which is do the decentralized SLDs with maybe a Web 2 application layer to manage them and things like that. And really, I was sort of torn on which way to go there. And when I sort of got a sneak preview of HNS.ID, I thought, wow, this is really cool. I mean, this is kind of what we always envisioned. This is how it should work. The domain is an NFT that sits in your wallet. And if you want to assign an IP address to a CNAME record or I mean, that actually, what I just said can't happen. But if you want to create a CNAME alias, or if you want to assign an IP address to an A record, basically what you'll do is you'll connect your NFT to this Web 2 app, and that will make all the DNS changes on the back end, but it's basically authenticating you using the SLD that you now own in your wallet. So that's perfect. And so that's really what sold me on it. Was we were still able to basically, like, if we go with if we put dot wallet on Namebase, and this is not to knock Namebase. Namebase is great, and it's totally got a very valid and much used use case. But basically what it does, it just gives you the traditional DNS service. Whereas if we go with like an HNS.ID, what we can do is we can get those same DNS services that we would have through Namebase, plus we get the fact that the SLD is not centrally owned by a company. It's owned by you in your MetaMask or Coinbase wallet. So that was kind of basically what, I don't know if you can see the screen.
Yeah, I see your slide. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, once I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, that's what we want. That's what we want. Now, the downside of that is the customer has to do more work, and it's not as easy. So we're weighing these options. So how do you weigh those two things? Like, you don't want to like alienate your customers because you're now telling them they have to become cryptocurrency wallet experts and minting experts and things like that, public private key knowledge. But at the same time, you don't want to hold it back. So I knew that I kind of knew that we would have a smaller customer base for Dot Wallet, but at the same time, I think that's just a now thing. And I think in the future, I could see a registrar coming along where they manage all of their domain names this way. I'm talking about .coms, .nets, .orgs. There's no reason this model can't be applied to a traditional registrar as far as like owning and staking and administering a domain name. It would be totally appropriate to do it this way. So that's kind of what sold me on HNS.id. And I think most of our customers are going to be happy with this decision. I know some won't, but we're really just trying to do the greater good for the greater number of people. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it.
This is the future.
For sure. It's clear to me too. And so, yeah, thanks. I think we're getting towards the end. And so this has been insightful. I hope people learned a lot about the old and the new. And yeah, I'm excited for HNSID as well. I have quite a few there, and I also claim my wallet into HNSID from the old gateway, and it's very, very exciting what has been happening. And I think once people understand it, yeah, like you said, it is a little bit. I mean, everything in life, you got to kind of learn new things, right? And it might be a little scary or foreign, but once you kind of figure it out, it does feel very superior. Like the more I learn about Web3, the less I'm interested in Web2 because it just doesn't feel like it's quote unquote mine at all, right? And we keep seeing it more and more. Not as much with domains, but it does happen with domains, but especially in social medias. I'm also really heavy into e-commerce on Web3 now. But on these current platforms, I don't trust them at all anymore.
Oh yeah, and again, I mean, we're in the early stages. Things get easier as time goes on. I mean, right now, I could see where somebody new coming into this would be totally confused and overwhelmed by, wait a minute, so I need to install this MetaMask. Okay, I installed MetaMask. What's this giant, like all these 24 words that I need to copy down? Like, what does that mean? Or what if I lose them? Or do I lose the domains? Well, how are you going to get them back? Well, you can't get them back. Oh, well, then I don't know if I like this. I mean, as time goes on, all these things sort of solutions come about, right? I mean, solutions form as time goes on. And I could see where somebody could say, well, wait a minute, how come I can't how come I can't buy the name? Oh, well, you got to have like Ethereum. Well, I have Ethereum. Well, it's got to be on Optimism. Oh, well, how do I do
Yeah.
that? Oh, well, you got to bridge it. Okay, well, how do I do that? I mean, like there's a learning curve here, but again, 5 years from now, there won't be that learning curve. I mean, there'll be solutions in place that make things just happen automatically, where you
Yeah.
won't have to create a manual bridge to move something. Maybe HNSID will have a solution to automatically do that for people. And maybe by then, HNSID will offer multiple blockchains to stake SLDs on. I mean, I could see where like, let's say I own Cardano or ADA. Well, if I want to basically implement a solution using Cardano as a foundation, do I really want my accounts, my authentication layer going to tokens on Optimism? Well, probably not. I probably want them on Cardano, right? So maybe HNS.ID offers in the future, hey, we'll let you pick what blockchain you want to mint your SLDs on. Those things just happen over time. This is still very young. we're still in baby steps, and this is all just part of the curve.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Scott. Thanks for fighting a good fight and helping us pioneer this new world. So I guess
Thank
oh, well, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was going to say thank you to you, but also thank you to all the supporters and the customers. And I mean, there were a lot of very rabid Handshake fans that defended Handshake throughout this whole time when when I really couldn't. And I think they played a huge role in helping us get to this point. And I'm very grateful to them. And I want to make sure that I acknowledge their efforts, along with Namecheap, obviously. I'm so thankful to, like, not every week now getting DMs on my Twitter account, telling me I'm a rug puller, and
Oh man.
it was awful.
Yeah, I know this space. I've dealt with that in others.
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, like every week I had to, like, constantly, like, don't worry, I promise you, you're going to get your name back.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure, you've been saying that for a year.
I know.
Like,
Well, you
don't
did it, so
worry,
it's great.
don't worry.
It's great. Awesome. Well, cheers to a new day and positive progress and working towards a more decentralized world so that they don't need to trust. I mean, trust us, trust you or other companies, but they can trust the blockchain, right? That's what it's for. So thanks so much, Scott. Really appreciate this. It was a fun one. And
No, thanks you for taking the time to do this. And I just want to give one final plug to hns.id.
yep.
If for those out there that haven't, not even for Dot Wallet, but for those of you that have a project where you're looking to basically not have to deal with managing user accounts and passwords, consider basically putting your TLD on hns.id and just selling accounts for $1 or whatever, and then have the people log into your system with the token in their wallet. And that's where the authentication happens on your end. I mean, it's a great solution. It's there, it's available, it's ready. Yeah, I think it's only going to grow.
Okay. Okay, great. I agree. It's a great solution. They've worked very hard on it, that team there. So I also have a tutorial at SkyInclude for HNSID that people can check out too. I think I'll link it in the notes. But thanks. Thanks, Scott. 2 years into this, and let's keep on pushing ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate you.